I heard the sirens before I saw the flashing lights. Red and blue danced across the walls of my garage as I stood frozen, wrench in hand, sweat still dripping from my temple. I was tightening a bolt on my '68 Mustang, the only thing lately that made sense in my life, when the garage door burst open and two officers charged in, weapons drawn. Hands where we can see them. On the ground. I dropped the wrench. It clanged loudly against the concrete, echoing with the kind of finality I couldn't yet understand. They cuffed me so fast I barely processed the cold steel around my wrists. Eric Johnson, one of the officers said, checking a clipboard like he was reading off a damn grocery list. You're under arrest for the alleged kidnapping of one Mr. Dylan Grant. Dylan. That was the name. The same Dylan my wife, Jessica, claimed was just her fitness coach. I should have known the moment she started wearing perfume to the gym. Wait. I barked, heart racing. You think I kidnapped him? They didn't answer. They didn't care. It wasn't until I was sitting in that cold interrogation room, under buzzing fluorescent lights that felt like they could expose every dark part of your soul, that it began to sink in. Jessica had done this. She really did it. She called the police, lied through her porcelain teeth, all because I didn't roll over and let her humiliate me in silence. But it got worse. 3 days later, they let my kids come see me. It was supposed to be monitored visitation, but no one monitored the way my heart shattered when my 14-year-old son, Caleb, looked me dead in the eye and said, "Mom keeps calling you a criminal. She told everyone you kidnapped Dylan because you couldn't accept that he was better than you, a superior alpha lover." I stared at him, blood rushing in my ears like a freight train. Alpha lover? She used that line on my son? What kind of twisted woman does that? That's when something broke in me. Some last thread of patience snapped like a dry twig in a wildfire. It wasn't just betrayal anymore. It was war. And I knew, when I got out of that hellhole, Jessica would regret everything. But let me back up. You deserve the full story, not just the end result. I need to tell you how a simple man like me, 39 years old, father of 2, husband for 15 miserable years, ended up being accused of kidnapping a dude who wore pink tank tops and whispered motivational quotes into my wife's ear while she squatted low for maximum burn. You need to know how Jessica turned into something I didn't recognize. How her lips could still smile while stabbing me in the ribs with lies so smooth, I almost believed them myself. You need to know how a man who gave up everything, his youth, his dreams, his nights, his weekends, in the name of family, became the villain in the story she wrote behind my back. It didn't start with cops or headlines. It started, like all betrayals, with a look. One look. Jessica stopped looking at me. Her eyes would pass over me like I was part of the furniture. But when that phone buzzed, she lit up like a Christmas tree. And the gym? Suddenly, it was her sanctuary. 2-hour sessions, 5 days a week. No sweat, no soreness, just perfectly done makeup and forgotten thongs in her gym bag. I once asked her, jokingly, "You training for a marathon or a modeling contract?" She replied, without even looking up from her phone, "Maybe for someone who still appreciates the view." That was her. Every compliment laced with venom. Every laugh like a slap in the face. And the lies? Oh, she was gifted. She could lie with her eyes closed. Say one thing with her mouth and a totally different thing with her body. She told me she loved me while adjusting her bra in the mirror like she was rehearsing for someone else's touch. She told me she'd be late from yoga. I checked her location. She was at the Lakeside Inn. I know, because I followed her once. Parked across the street like some rejected private eye in a truck that smelled like desperation. I watched her step out of that hotel laughing, brushing her fingers through her hair like a teenager on prom night. And there he was, Dylan, walking behind her, smirking, shirt untucked, sunglasses on at 9 p.m. She lied. Lied to my face. Lied to my kids. Lied to the world. And she was damn proud of it. But the police? That was the last straw. She didn't just cheat. She didn't just betray. She tried to erase me. Erase the man who built this life with her. Who carried her through her father's funeral, her postpartum depression, her failed business ideas. And this is how she repaid me? I didn't kidnap Dylan. But after what happened, after what she said, I kind of wish I had. And that's just the beginning. The night after the police dropped those charges and let me out on bond, I sat in my truck, staring at our house from the street like a stranger. Porch lights on, curtains drawn, Same flower pots she insisted I keep alive even though she couldn't care less about them. It all looked normal, but nothing was normal anymore. You ever get that gut feeling? The one that creeps in slowly, whispering that something's off, but you ignore it because the truth would tear your world apart? Yeah, I had that feeling for months. It started subtle. Jessica began working late more often. She said her boss gave her more responsibility. Funny how responsibility looked a lot like new lingerie and gym selfies with quotes like, "Strong is the new sexy." I mean, what the hell happened to date nights and cooking lasagna together in sweatpants? She also stopped touching me. Not in a dramatic, yelling kind of way. Just slowly. First it was no morning kisses. Then it was pulling away when I reached for her hand during movies. Then, silence in bed. One night, I walked in from work and found her on the phone, laughing. That kind of laugh women use when they're feeling cute and dangerous at the same time. She noticed me and turned away like she was hiding it. "Who was that?" I asked. "Relax, Eric," she sighed. "It's Stacy from yoga." But I heard it. A male voice. Deep. Confident. Not Stacy. I should have pushed harder. But I didn't. You know why? Because when a man suspects his wife is lying, it's easier to bury it than to dig it up and ruin everything. A few days later, I was folding laundry. Yeah, I did that. And I found a hotel key card in the pocket of her jeans. No brand. Just room 214, printed in tiny letters on a worn corner. I held that thing like it was radioactive. My chest hurt. My throat closed. But when I showed it to her, she laughed in my face. "Oh my God, Eric. It's from Stacy's bachelorette party," she said, rolling her eyes. "Seriously? Are you spying on my pants now?" She flipped it so smoothly. Like I was the crazy one. I even apologized. That night, I lay next to her while she scrolled on her phone with her back to me. I watched the glow of the screen light up her face. She smiled. Not once did she look at me. I realized I didn't know who was making her smile anymore. Then came the gym obsession. She used to complain about sweating. Suddenly, she had 2 memberships. New outfits. Matching bras and leggings. She stopped eating pasta. Jessica stopped eating pasta. That's when I knew it was serious. I followed her one day. Yeah, I became that guy. She didn't go to the gym. She went to the Lakeside Inn. I watched from the parking lot as she walked in wearing her gym clothes and heels. An hour later, Dylan strolled out first. Cocky. Careless. Adjusting his watch like he didn't just defile a man's marriage. She followed 10 minutes later. Hair tousled. Lipstick refreshed. And still I did nothing. You know why? Because confronting her meant facing the truth. That the woman I gave 15 years to had turned into a stranger who lied without blinking. But that would change. I wouldn't stay quiet much longer. And when I did finally speak, when I finally acted, Jessica would wish she'd never messed with a man who had nothing left to lose. The day I finally lost it started like any other, quiet resentment over coffee and eggs I made for myself. Jessica was already gone by 6:30 a.m., claiming she had an early spin class. Her gym bag was packed the night before, and she even left her favorite perfume on the dresser like some twisted token of innocence. I didn't buy it. I opened the laptop, logged into our shared phone account. Yeah, I know, call it insecure or obsessive, but what I saw made my stomach flip. Dozens of late-night calls to a number saved as Coach Dylan. Midnight texts. Emojis. Hearts. Can't wait to feel your strength again, flexed biceps, winking face. Strength, huh? I nearly crushed the mug in my hand. I wrote the number down, called it from a burner app one downloaded the night before, just in case. A woman picked up. "Hello. Wrong number?" "Hi, is this Dylan's phone?" I asked, steadying my voice. "Oh, you must be looking for him. This is his girlfriend, Ava." "Who's this?" I froze. My mouth went dry. "Girlfriend?" "Just a friend," I muttered. "Wrong number. Sorry." I hung up and stared at the screen for a long time. So he had a girlfriend, too. Just like Jessica had a husband. Something inside me snapped. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't paranoid. I was being played by 2 selfish liars, and now I had proof. I drove straight to the Lakeside Inn. I didn't even care anymore. Room 214. I asked the guy at the front desk if he could help me surprise my wife. Dropped a $50 bill with a nervous smile. People don't say no to cash. He slid me the key like it was a favor for love. I walked up those stairs, palms sweating, heart pounding like a war drum. I had no idea what I'd see behind that door, but I knew I couldn't keep pretending everything was fine. I opened the door. They weren't in bed. Jessica was on the armchair, legs spread, wearing the black robe I bought her last Valentine's Day. Dylan stood behind her shirtless, massaging her shoulders like they were the king and queen of betrayal. She saw me first. Her face didn't twist in horror, no? She rolled her eyes. "Oh, great, Eric," she muttered. "You're seriously stalking me now?" Dylan stepped forward. "Yo man, relax. Don't make this weird. Don't make this weird." I almost laughed. I didn't say a word. I just stood there, watching them, memorizing every second. Jessica leaned back in the chair, completely unbothered. "This is why I had to step away. You're always so dramatic. You're not even man enough to talk things through like an adult. Always spying. Always sulking. I should have walked away. But I didn't. I lunged, grabbed Dylan by the neck, and slammed him into the wall before he even knew what was happening. Years of gym membership and alpha lover crap didn't save him from a husband with nothing left to lose. He screamed. She screamed. I let him go. And then I left. No words. No goodbye. Just slammed the door behind me and drove home in silence, hands shaking, mind buzzing like static. 3 hours later, the cops showed up at my garage. And now you know the rest. She told the world I kidnapped him. Told our kids I was mentally unstable. Told anyone who would listen that I was jealous because Dylan was superior. But what she didn't know was, I'd already planned my comeback. She wanted war. She'd get war. After the arrest, after the fingerprinting, after the humiliation of being called a kidnapper by my own kids, I went quiet. Not weak. Not broken. Just quiet. The kind of quiet that comes before a storm. I didn't scream. I didn't beg. I just waited. Jessica didn't visit me while I was in holding. Not even a phone call. But her lawyer sure did. A smug little man named Thomas Reed, who wore $1,000 suits and smelled like expensive lies. Jessica wants to move forward, he said, sliding a paper across the scratch table. If you agree to sign the temporary custody documents, she'll consider dropping the complaint regarding Dylan. I stared at him for a full minute. Then, slowly, I pushed the paper back toward him. Tell her I'll see her in hell. And then I smiled. Because I knew something Jessica didn't. I had proof. Not just feelings. Not just screenshots or guesses. Actual proof. Hotel records, text logs, timestamps. And I had one more card left to play. The day I got home, I didn't go inside. I sat in my truck out front, just watching. Dylan's car was in the driveway. That piece of garbage had moved in already, barely a week after the cops dropped the charges against me for lack of evidence. He was mowing my lawn, in my shoes. I watched him with a weird kind of calm. It was like watching a raccoon dig through your trash, annoying, pathetic, and laughable. Jessica came outside wearing one of my shirts, tied at the waist, like she was 20 again. She kissed him, right there, in front of the house. And I knew what I had to do. I waited until the weekend. Jessica had no idea I still had access to the home security system. I logged in, turned the cameras back on, set one in the hallway, another in the living room, and, most importantly, the master bedroom. You see, while she was out there playing house with her alpha lover, I was building my case. And when the footage started rolling, well, let's just say, the coach had performance issues. She berated him, mocked him, called him a downgrade with muscles. I guess the novelty was wearing off. That Sunday, I invited her to meet at a neutral spot, a quiet park where our kids used to feed ducks before our world turned toxic. She came alone, confident and condescending. "What now, Eric?" she said, arms folded, like I was some annoying mosquito buzzing in her new designer life. I handed her a flash drive. "What's this?" she asked. "Everything." She plugged it into her phone with an adapter. Yeah, I knew she carried one, and her face changed. First smirk, then confusion, then rage. "You sick creep. You had cameras in the house. That's illegal." "No," I said. "It's my house. Still in my name. Still my property. And now, it's evidence." She stood there trembling, not with fear. No, Jessica didn't do fear, but with fury. The kind a cornered liar feels when her lies start to collapse. "You think this will fix what you did?" she hissed. "You embarrassed me. You ruined everything. You made me feel trapped for years, Eric." I stepped closer. "No, Jessica. You ruined everything. And now, I'm just giving the world the truth. You want to lie to my kids? Fine. But the truth has a way of crawling out, one recording at a time." She slapped me, right across the face. And I smiled. Because the camera I wore on my jacket caught everything. And that was just the beginning. I didn't expect to see my kids so soon after the park incident. Jessica had always been the master manipulator, the kind of woman who could convince a priest to sin and smile while doing it. I assumed she'd keep them away from me until she could spin a story that made her the victim and me the lunatic. But I was wrong. 3 days later, Caleb showed up at my apartment. Alone. I opened the door and he just stood there, hands buried in the front pocket of his hoodie, eyes low. "You gonna let me in, or?" he mumbled. "Yeah, of course. Come in." He dropped his backpack on the couch and sat, stiff, like he didn't know where to begin. I didn't push. I just grabbed us both a soda from the fridge and sat across from him. "She said you were violent," he finally said. "That you kidnapped her boyfriend and tried to kill him." I nodded. "That's what she told everyone." "Did you?" "No." He looked down again, picking at the label of the bottle. "I don't know what to believe anymore, Dad." That cut deeper than anything Jessica had said. I reached for the folder I kept under the coffee table. Copies of everything. Screenshots. Videos. The printed receipts from the hotel. Even her voice, recorded calling Dylan a useless toy when she thought no one was watching. I didn't say anything. Just handed it to him. He looked through it in silence for almost 10 minutes. Then he spoke. "She told me you were jealous. That you couldn't handle her finding someone stronger. That you were insecure." I was insecure, I admitted. But not because he was stronger. Because I trusted her. And she burned that trust to the ground. He didn't cry. Caleb was like me. Kept it bottled up, tight and silent. But I saw his jaw clench, his shoulders tense. "She let Dylan sleep in your bed," he whispered. "She told me you were a loser. Said you didn't try hard enough to keep her happy." That's when I realized Jessica hadn't just tried to erase me from her life. She'd tried to poison my own children against me. That was her final revenge. "You ever wonder why I left?" I asked him. He nodded. "It wasn't because of the cheating. It wasn't even the lies. It was because she stopped being a mother. When someone stops protecting their kids, they stop being human." He swallowed hard. "She said you were dangerous." I leaned forward. "And yet here you are? Do I look dangerous?" He shook his head. "No. You look tired." I smiled sadly. That's closer to the truth than she'll ever admit. Caleb stayed the night. We didn't talk much after that. We watched reruns of Breaking Bad, ate frozen pizza, and fell asleep with the TV still on. It was the most peace I'd felt in months. The next morning, my daughter Emma called. She was crying. Jessica had screamed at her when she asked about the videos. Said I was hacking her life, called her a traitor. I told Emma to come stay with me. And that's when the real collapse began. Jessica lost control of the narrative. The perfect image she painted started cracking. Friends started pulling away. Her own sister texted me. "I had no idea it was this bad. I'm so sorry." But the best part? Dylan left her. She came home one day, and he was gone. No note, no goodbye. Just vanished, like the coward he was. And Jessica? She spiraled. Drunk voicemails at 2 a.m. Emails titled, "You ruined my life." One message just said, "I hope you choke on your truth." But I wasn't choking. I was breathing again. And for the first time in a long, long while, I felt like a man my kids could still be proud of. 2 weeks after Dylan disappeared from Jessica's life, I got a call from her. I let it ring out the first time, and the second, but by the third call, curiosity won. I answered, putting the phone on speaker just in case she tried anything slick. "Eric," she said. Her voice sounded different. Shaky. Small. Like the fire was finally dying out. I didn't speak. Just listened. "I know I messed up," she started, followed by a long, self-pitying sigh. I didn't expect him to leave. Not like that. Not after everything I gave up. There it was, everything I gave up. Not an apology. Not regret. Just more of that self-absorbed garbage she wrapped herself in like perfume. "You mean everything you destroyed?" I corrected. Silence. "I just thought maybe we could talk," she said quietly. "For the kids. Maybe even dinner." I actually laughed. A sharp, bitter sound that startled even me. "Jessica, you dragged my name through the mud. Had me arrested. Told our kids I was unstable. And now you want dinner." I was angry. I didn't know what else to do. "You embarrassed me." "No," I cut her off. "You embarrassed yourself." I just turned on the light. She started crying. Real tears. Maybe. But they didn't hit me like they used to. They felt rehearsed, like a monologue from a bad soap opera. "I lost everything, Eric," she sobbed. "My friends won't talk to me. My job is on the line. Dylan's gone. And the kids, They barely look at me. Good, I thought. But I didn't say it. I just let her sit in that silence. Let her hear what it felt like to be truly alone. Maybe now, I said finally, you understand what it feels like to be discarded, to be humiliated, to be seen as nothing but an obstacle. I ended the call. That night, I stood in the kitchen, looking out the window. Emma was sitting on the porch, sketching in her notebook. Caleb was inside playing video games, yelling at someone over his headset. And I was still healing. But it wasn't just about betrayal anymore. It was about identity, about rediscovering the man I had buried under years of compromise, silence, and walking on eggshells for a woman who never deserved any of it. In the following days, I started doing things I hadn't done in years. I went fishing with my brother. I fixed the back deck. I took Emma to her first driving lesson. I even joined a boxing gym, not because I was angry, but because I needed to sweat out the pieces of her still clinging to my skin. Jessica tried reaching out a few more times, always with some new excuse, always with some fresh version of the story where she wasn't the villain, just misunderstood. But I didn't respond anymore. Not to the texts, not to the calls, not to the voice notes that began with "I was drinking" or "I just needed to hear your voice." She was no longer a storm in my life. She was background noise. One afternoon, I received a manila envelope in the mail. Inside was a short note from Jessica, scrawled in rushed handwriting. "You win. I'll sign the divorce papers." Underneath, the documents. Signed. No conditions. No demands. Just a signature, finally accepting the end. I placed the papers on the table, sat down, and let out a breath I didn't know I'd been holding for years. It was over. The cheating, the manipulation, the lies. But what came next was mine to build. From the ground up. You don't realize how broken you've become until you start putting yourself back together. After Jessica signed the papers, I wasn't happy. Not right away. I didn't throw a party or crack open a bottle of scotch like in the movies. I just sat in my kitchen, staring at that signature, feeling empty. 15 years with someone, even if it turns out they were a nightmare in heels, leaves a dent in your soul. But something strange happened the next morning. I woke up, no tension in my jaw, no pit in my stomach, no pretending. Just silence. Real, peaceful silence. For the first time in years, the air in the house didn't feel like it was holding its breath. I made breakfast for the kids, real breakfast. Eggs, toast, bacon, and orange juice that wasn't from concentrate. Caleb came down first. He looked at the table and blinked like he'd stepped into the wrong house. "You okay, Dad?" I smiled. "Yeah, I think I actually am." Emma joined us a minute later. She didn't say anything, just hugged me. Tight and long. The kind of hug that says all the things teenagers don't know how to say out loud. That moment, that one hug, meant more to me than anything Jessica had said in the last 5 years. And that's when I knew I hadn't just lost a wife. I'd reclaimed a fatherhood that was slipping through my fingers. I started therapy, something I'd always brushed off as not my thing. But sitting across from someone who didn't know Jessica, who didn't judge me, who just listened, it changed everything. The therapist told me something that stuck. "You didn't fail. You stayed." She left. Those 7 words undid years of self-blame. I wasn't the villain. I wasn't the weak one. I was the man who stayed loyal to a sinking ship, hoping it could still float. I also started writing. Nothing fancy, just journaling my thoughts. Every memory, every betrayal, every red flag I ignored, I wrote them down. And through those pages, I started seeing a version of myself I hadn't met in a long time. Confident, clear-headed, focused. One night, while cleaning out the garage, I found a box of old photos, back when Jessica and I were happy, or at least pretending well. Our wedding, the birth of Caleb, a vacation in Colorado. For a moment, the ache returned. But instead of letting it drag me under, I burned them. Every last one. Not out of hate, out of release. It was symbolic, saying goodbye to the illusion, to the mask she wore so well. Letting the fire consume what I no longer needed to carry. I also started reconnecting with people I'd pushed away. My brother and I went for beers. Old college friends reached out after hearing about the divorce. Apparently, Jessica's spiral had made the rounds faster than wildfire in a dry forest. "She always gave me bad vibes," one of them said. "Glad you're free now." Yeah, free. That word hit different now. I wasn't just free from her. I was free from who I became trying to keep her. I found joy in small things again. Building shelves. mowing the lawn, teaching Emma how to parallel park without losing my mind. I even got a dog, a German shepherd named Duke. Loyal, sharp, and honest with his emotions. Everything Jessica wasn't. Most of all, I began trusting my gut again. The same gut that tried to warn me back when she started wearing lipstick to the gym. The truth is, betrayal doesn't just hurt because someone cheats on you. It hurts because it makes you question your own judgment. But the moment you reclaim your voice, your space, your dignity, that's when healing begins. And that's where I was. Not a victim, not a survivor. A man, standing in the ashes, building something real for the first time in years. It's strange how life finds its balance. One minute you're sitting in a jail cell, falsely accused of kidnapping a clown in gym shorts. And the next, you're standing in your backyard, flipping burgers while your kids laugh around a fire pit. That night felt like closure. Emma was telling some story about a kid in her art class who brought a ferret in his backpack. Caleb was doing his awful British accent, and I just watched them, really watched them, and thought, they're okay. I didn't lose them. Jessica tried her best to poison them, to twist them. But the truth always finds a way, doesn't it? She still sends messages. Not many now, just the occasional, I miss how things were, or tell the kids I said hi. I never respond. That chapter's sealed, locked, and buried. She lost more than a husband. She lost her children's respect. She lost the mask she wore for years. And the irony? The man she blew up her life for, the superior alpha lover, blocked her and moved to Florida. I heard he's coaching moms now. Poetic. As for me, I didn't start dating right away. I needed to know who I was without a ring on my finger or a lie in my house. It took time. Therapy. Late nights staring at the ceiling. Questions like, what did I miss? How did I let it get this far? But eventually, I stopped looking back. Because the past is a trap, one Jessica lived in, and I refused to die in. One afternoon, I met a woman named Rachel at the bookstore. She was standing in the same aisle, psychology and trauma healing, which tells you a lot about the people life brings your way when you're ready. We talked. Not about pain. Not about exes. Just books. Life. Laughs. She had this calm about her, like a lake before sunrise. No drama. No lies. She asked me about my story eventually, and I told her the truth, the whole brutal mess. She didn't flinch. She just listened. And then she said something I'll never forget. You can't control who breaks you, but you decide who helps you rebuild. That stuck with me. Still does. I'm not bitter. Not anymore. Yeah, Jessica was a storm. A hurricane in heels. But even storms clear the air. After the destruction, you get to rebuild stronger, wiser, sharper. And if I had to give any advice to someone walking the road I did, it's this. Trust your gut. If something feels off, it is. Don't let sweet words cover sour actions. Don't silence your instincts to protect someone else's comfort. Keep receipts. Not for revenge. For protection. When the lies come, and they will, truth will be your shield. Protect your peace. Leave if it costs you your dignity. Stay if there's honesty. But the second someone makes you feel like an option in a story you helped build, walk. And finally, forgive, but never forget. Forgiveness is for you. It's how you drop the weight. But forgetting? That's how history repeats itself. I'm not the same man who stood in that garage with cuffs on his wrists and confusion in his eyes. I'm the man who survived it. I'm the man who rebuilt his life, piece by piece, with scars that tell a story, not of weakness, but of war, and the peace that followed. And if Jessica ever wonders what became of me, let her wonder. Because the best revenge is a life well lived.